Welcome to That Eurovision Podcast, Eurovision with a slice of life. And for a second week in a row, you're not having Rory nor Rosie. This is Tim, which is a bit weird because I don't usually take this seat and it feels very weird. And also, Rory's not here as well. So that's another weird thing. But I am doing great. Slightly still tired because at the time of recording, I'm still feeling the after effects of Eurofest, which was really fun, but got a little bit too drunk. But you know what? It was nice to see everyone once again. It's just nice being on a night out with my friends. And also at the same time, after so many weeks and months, at the time of recording, we finally know where we're going. We're going to Turin, which I'm very, very happy about because it all happened on that same day. Eurofest, Måneskin, you're releasing Mamma Mia and the host city. So we were all pumped for that night, and then the celebration just rolled on until we couldn't function the next day. But enough about me. Joining me,
Jazzi, very, very excited that we now have a host city and we now know where we're going. A little bit shocked when I found out the dates. Tim already knows why. Initially a little bit horrified. But alas, here we are. So excited and can't wait to get into this episode because it's not something that I've talked too much about previously on podcast, but it'll be really interesting to delve into this topic.
And I'm Angus. I'm doing all right as well. Very excited that I can go to concerts again and picking all that up again. Just scored some tickets for the Goa concert, one of the ones they're doing in Netherlands, so that's going to be fun. But we first have something else to talk about.
Okay, all right then. Lovely. So today's topic, we're going to go back to our country retrospectives. And, since we found out the host city and the fact that it's a big five country, we're going to do a big five country for you guys. And actually, this is the one that Angus has said that he would like to talk about. So we are going to talk about l'Allemagne, Germany, one of the big five countries. So they're one of the countries who are the biggest financial contributors to the EBU, thus therefore qualifying automatically for the grand final without any effort. I wouldn't say with an effort, but you still need to make an effort in the competition. So they automatically for the final regardless. They debuted in 1956, so basically they're one of the debuting countries on the inaugural edition of the competition, with Walter Andreas Schwartz with Wartesol zum Grubenbuch. I don't know if I did that very well. And Freddie Quinn, Zoget das jede Nacht. Again, I'm so sorry, Angus. He can speak German and I can just see his facial reactions literally on Zoom. It's really funny. Funnily enough, they have participated 64 times. Eurovision has taken place 65 times. And funnily enough, they only did not participate once. And that was in 1996. They selected Leon with Planet of Blue. But because of a pre-qualification round that they've added on, they did not score enough points to be there. And that was a bit of a controversy because Germany was one of the biggest financial contributors. And I think that was one of the reasons why the Big Five became a thing, just because of the fact to ensure that Germany doesn't miss out on a competition again. Looking at their results, Germany has won it twice. First in 1982 with Nickel, Ein bisschen Frieden. Hopefully I did pronounce that right in him. And I'm not looking at Angus because I know he's going to judge me. And then the second one, of course, in 2010 with Lena in Satellites. With that as well, they've also had placed last. And, their last places were actually nil points in 1964 with Nornova. Oh, God, I can't even pronounce this. Man going sich zu schnell um das schon. Ulla Wisner with Paradis Wu Bistu. Oh God. And then the very latest one with Anne Sophie and Black Smoke. So, Angus and Jazzy, do you want to explain your like thoughts on Germany at the contest?
Germany have had quite a few gems that I really, really love, but unlike a lot of like Germany's like a lot of the country reps here, I've gone quite recent with a lot of my faves. I'd actually say my big faves are from like the pre-2000 era, which I'm sure Tim will ask about later. There have been a few like in recent years that I do really like, but Germany are kind of in the same boat as the UK, whereas I think they have a really good music industry and they could do better at Eurovision than they do. And I feel like one of those pinpoints was when it was totally possible for them to do quite well again was Ben Dolich's Violent Thing, because I think they'd had before that they'd had a string of really, really poor results. Somewhat deserved in my mind. Maybe Anne Sophie's Black Smoke wasn't as deserved as the others prior to that. And then we saw that come about and it was more modern, it was more upbeat, and it was more enjoyable. And then I feel like as much as I love him and he's a great person, I don't feel hate felt like a bit of a step backwards for Germany. He is infectious and I love him, but the song for me is just not for me. And I obviously Europe kind of agreed because he did get 0 from the tally vote. Although I didn't think he would do. I did think some tally voters, it would appeal to tally voters simply because I thought there would be a lot more kids watching, but I guess he was on fairly late into the show. So I don't know. I didn't think he'd get 0 at the tally vote. I actually was pretty surprised by that. But yeah, it's not underwhelming in the last few years, bar 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020. So we do not speak of it.
So yeah, Germany, they're weird when it comes to Eurovision, and I mean that in the best possible way. Their staging has played a big part in some of their poor performances. Musically, they're all over the place, yet always sending in pop entries, especially in recent years. What I just really like about Germany compared to other Eurovision countries is I always have something to say about their songs, whether I really like them or just absolutely loathe their entries. I always have like an emotional response and something to say about it. And that's not something I can say about any other Eurovision country, because a lot of the time I can just be like, it's fine, or I don't really care about it. But with a German entry, I always have something to say about it. And I mean it about all of their entries throughout history. The older ones a bit less so sometimes because I'm not as familiar with the music scene at the time. But yeah, no, German entries are weird. Germany loves Eurovision without necessarily caring about doing well, which is also something I really appreciate. They're just happy to be there. And it's, yeah, also justice for Anne-Sophie and Jamie Lee.
Okay, for me, I'd say I'd have a mixed emotions with Germany just because of the fact that, in the beginning, they were actually like one of the best countries. Like they were consistent, like top 10, and then with the odd placing outside of the top 10. And then you had the streak from 1977 up until 1983. They were just consistently like top 10 throughout that. And then when, I don't know what it is, maybe it was just as the rules changed and we entered a new century, it just kind of went like, it just fluctuated left, right, and center. But the thing is, though, they do have some very decent entries. And I think with from 2010 onwards, they've just had like a mixed fortunes. But you know what? I will say this, from 2010 onwards, I actually do like all of their entries. I do sing along to them. It feels like you can give me like any karaoke session with a Eurovision country. I bet to you Germany will be one of the top countries on there just because I would just dance and bop along and just like sing along to the entries because they're just that. I think infectious would be like a bad word, but it's more of like an earworm because I can just listen to them over and over again and I would not be bothered or like get bored of it easily. But moving on, obviously there's 64 Eurovision entries in the from Germany. But 65 because they sent two in the inaugural edition. But shall we talk about what are our favorite entries from Germany? So for this one, let's maybe give us like what the top four.
Okay. I will go backwards and I will say that my fourth would be Roman Lob's Standing Still. I just really like the song. I think it's one of those ballads that I can often find myself just singing along to when it like comes on ESC radio or I'm rewatching 2012. The performance is quite simple. It is very of that time of like the start of the Ed Sheeran era. Like you can tell that the song is from that time of period of music. But I do really, really like it. It's just a nice song. My third will be Ben Dolich's Violent Thing. I felt like this was really a step forward for Germany, and I thought, hey, Germany could do really well in the contest again. This is modern, this is upbeat, this is really, really enjoyable, and I'm sorry to say, very much a step in the right direction from Sisters, who, well, we all know how that ended. I just really, really enjoy it. And when it comes on a night, you're like a Eurovision night out, it does go off, and rightly so. And I think he is lovely as well. He's quite a big part of the Eurovision Twitter community, and I think that's part of my affection for him and his song as well. I just wish he got his moment in Rotterdam. Again, we will not speak of why he didn't. And then for my top two, we're going backwards a little bit to 1999 with Raise Mac Jerusalem. Sorry, I have probably totally messed that up. It was sung by Surprise. That's a Turkish, the German Turkish. So I think this song is just so cool, and it like when you see it on stage, it's just so enjoyable, and it deserved the third place in 1999, which I think is quite a strong year. Yeah, I enjoy it. And then my first for Germany would be 1979 Dishingas Khan. This is one that I've grown an affection for, definitely through ESC radio over the years. It's just such a bop. I don't remember what won in 1979, but I wish this did because it's so fun. It's so enjoyable. And it's one of the first older entries I remember listening to. The beat always gets like stuck in my head and I really, really enjoy it. And I feel like it's really nice to like be able to appreciate a country's older entries as well. Because I feel like sometimes on this podcast I don't do that. But with Germany, yeah, there's a clear number one for me.
So yeah, I find it hard to choose, but considering you already mentioned Genghis Khan, which is just great, I will instead go for my number four. I'll say the original Fuego, the song from the year before, Feuer by Irene Scher. It's great fun. It's very 70s. It's just the right amount of cheese. I actually really like Germany's second entry, so from the inaugural year, Freddie Quinn's So geht das jede Nacht. It's just fun. It's especially for early Eurovision, it feels fairly experimental because there's a bit of like rock and roll vibes in it. And that's not something you saw in the early contest. That's just, I really appreciate it. And Freddie Quinn is also just a massive name in German music history. Well, massive, pretty big at least. And then for my other two, I would have to say No No Never by Texas Lightning from 2006 is my number two. It's just great fun. I don't know why I love these like fake country songs in Eurovision, but I always do. But my number one is one of my favorite Eurovision entries of all time, and that's Lena's "Taken by a Stranger." It blows satellite out of the water for me, and I just really, really enjoyed the song. And it was also performed pretty well, which, considering how Lena was, how nervous she can be, that was like really great to see. And it's one of the few Eurovision songs that before I got into the contest, I just like heard on the radio, and I was beyond like the obvious suspects like Waterloo and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just this really good song that works inside the context of the contest, but also outside of it, which I just love to hear.
Okay, we got one similarity on that one, Angus, but I'll explain on that later on. But I'm varied on mine, but most of them are in this century. But just because I found it a bit difficult to go real back. Actually, no, I'll do 2 and 2 just to be fair. But my fourth place, this is the first one, and I am just gonna say that, may she rest in peace. My fourth place is Joy Fleming. Ein Lied kann ein Brookshine, which placed 17th in 1975. With this one, this was actually one of the first songs I've heard when I listened on ESC radio. I just randomly put this on, and this was one of the first songs and that I've listened to. And ever since then, whenever I always play on it, this always comes on, and it just makes me feel really nostalgic for some reason. And it melts my heart a bit. Another one, which is on the same century, Nicole, Ich bin Frieden, just because very calm, very quaint, singing about world peace. Come on, like, who would not love world peace? It's very much heart. And looking at the second place, I found it a bit tougher as it went on, actually. Second one, Michael Schultz, He Let Me Walk Alone, because I'm one of the first ones I actually believed on it. Like, I know some people like, ballad, didn't really want to do well. And fast forward to Lisbon, one of Germany's best results since 2010. Well, actually, since 2012, because they placed 8th. And just blew it out of the park. They were deserved. And my winner, of course, would be Lena. Just because I was at that phase where I was just watching Eurovision year after year after year. And of course, I listened to the Eurovision winner, always download the song from iTunes and put it on my iPod. It's like for like 3 weeks, that's what I was. Just like humming to and that was just me. But I will give a couple of shout outs though. One for them, one was from the year before, and I'm not ashamed to say it, but Miss Kiss Kiss Bang is actually an amazing performance. And the fact that the Germany got Dieter von Teets to go on that stage in Moscow was very fantastic. And the last one would be from a couple of years back. It's Roger Sierra with Von Reine die Welt, which was a spectacular performance. And I've said this on the 2007 episode that had the jury existed, I think this would have elevated it on the scoreboard a bit more, which was a bit frustrating because it was so good. But moving on now, Jazzy was mentioning earlier about Germany and how recently Germany has been on their luck with their placings on the contest. Like looking at it from 2010 onwards, obviously they've had Lena win it, 10th place in 11, 8th place on 12, and then, pondering mid leaderboard, and 15 and 16, and then 17, it just went, and then Michael happened, and then it just went back again. It's also good to note at the time that since 2020 they've actually internally selected their entries, but the rest of them were actually selected through I can't even remember the name now.
It went by a bunch of names. Usually was Unser Lied für
it's like Unser Lied for,
but it also once was Unser Star for Baku, I believe, for 2012 then.
So it's like it was mostly like the Unser Lied format, which was like a very weird format. It was like international jury, Eurovision jury, and then televote, and it's just like a very complicated amalgamated format. You're just like, huh? like every time I watch it. But looking at it, Germany's had like a bad streak of results recently, and the fact that we thought that they were heading in the right direction in 2020, but then obviously stuff happened that, you know, if you're listening to this in the future, go ask your parents like what on earth happened in 2020. But all I'll say is, looks like Germany is participating in next year's competition. Like, I mean, why wouldn't they? But what do you think they're doing right at the minute, and or what are they doing wrong, or what do you think they can do to kind of improve on their result standing? Because it looked like they were heading in the right direction, and then 2021 happened. As much as I love you and Rick,
I feel in the streak between 2018 and 2020, they were heading in the right direction, and I would even include 2019 in that, because Sisters was the worst song in that national final. That national final itself was pretty good in my mind. They just picked the wrong song that year. It's not, oh, all the songs were bad and that was Best of a Bad Bunch. That wasn't the case. And I get why after that then they went internal, because you couldn't really trust them to choose the right song. I think the one thing that has been really noted as well with Germany is Lena and Michael's success post Eurovision. In Germany, they've done really well post Eurovision. I feel like if they almost signposted them in Germany, like, hey, if you do Eurovision, you could have a career like this if you did well. I don't know. It's a really hard one, because I think it's only been 1 year where they've gone backwards, but I don't know whether 2021 was something they wanted to try something different. And I'm one of these people that feels like, yeah, it could have paid off. It could have got a big televote result, but it didn't. Yeah, it's all just a bit awkward now, because it's only 1 year tried and tested with the internal selection, really. Do we give them another chance, or do they need to go back to the national final? Because the national final seems to be where they do better, but maybe vetting the songs more that get into the national final, because I do think Germany has talented artists, and I feel like artists that are big enough that would want to do Eurovision, because there has obviously Michael and Lena have been so successful post Eurovision. It's really difficult to know what Germany could do better. But yeah, maybe go back to a national final. I'm not sure. Maybe give it another year and then go back with internal. It's a hard one.
I think the biggest problem for Germany in the end tends to be execution, because I know it wasn't universally popular or anything, but I do remember both in 2015 and 16 people quite liking the studio cuts of the songs. And then, well, they both ended last place. And that is largely due to staging in both years. But you can point to a lot of German Eurovision entries, and it's both that the live performance either had something, well, not necessarily wrong with it, but didn't click with people, and that the staging was questionable. If we think back to 2009 Miss Kiss Kiss Bang, for the people who haven't seen it, yes, Dita Von T shows up, which you would think like, oh, great idea, let the camera focus on her. No, you barely see her in the live performance. It feels very odd. And you can also look, Sisters had the weird situation of the faces on the screen, but that's also a case of better pre-selection of the songs, because if I remember correctly, that song was rejected from the Swiss national finals beforehand, and then the Germans were like, oh, let's push it for the national final because this will be our winner. Which, well, we all know how that went down. And on a similar note, I don't know if a national final necessarily is good for Germany. I'm sure other countries have the dramas with it, but Germany has had like 2 big dramas with it. Within 1999, the winner getting disqualified because it actually being an older release song, and Reis nach Jerusalem itself almost not being allowed to go to Eurovision as well. And then you also had Lavina's Perfect Life only going to Eurovision because the winner of the national selection suddenly being like, no, actually, I'm fine. I don't need to go to Eurovision. Just.
I thought that was Anne-Sophie.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Was it? It could be either way around.
It's
I mean,
Anne-Sophie,
it
it's
was.
Anne-Sophie and Andreas, and then Anne-Sophie was just like speechless, and
Oh yeah, no, you're right. I get them confused,
and
honestly.
Barbara just had to like literally spiel on and just like, you know, tell everyone respect his decision, blah blah blah.
Can we for a moment just send some love to Barbara Schoenberger, who's just, despite not being there for that long, just being part of the Eurovision furniture, it almost feels like she's just supposed to be there, being like from the wonderful Reeperbahn. Eurovision isn't Eurovision without her, honestly.
For me, all I'll say is I will agree with Jazzy. You need to give an internal selection a bit of time, just because of the fact that we've only had 1 year, and you know, other countries are having similar formats per se. So I think Switzerland is kind of doing something similar, and they managed to do it quite well. But with Germany, I think they just started recently doing it, and I will also agree with the fact that I do not trust the German audience to vote for the right song. No offense to all the people that are being thrown on the bus, but I think I've read somewhere, and so, don't quote me on this, but I think I've read somewhere that, you know, the people that vote in a national final like don't even watch Eurovision or like vote or something like that. So it's like they kind of like compared data on something, and I was just like, you know what? If they don't even watch Eurovision, then why even bother putting on a national final? Like, my God. But all I'll say is there's always a good song, and then the 3-stage format, it's just like it always affects one entry that we like. And we're missing out on such entries. The one I would shout out for that one is, you know, Ali Ryan, even though some people in the fandom don't like her right now. But I do love her songs. I will say that. Okay. Germany has had a few nationals finals, like, and I've talked about like a few of them. If you've watched this, was there any entry from Germany that you think, you know what, we were robbed of this on stage, and I think someone else or something else should have gone? So if there is one, which one do you think it is?
I'm gonna kind of echo what Tim says. Ali Ryan, Where Your Love. I think I quite like the stage performance of this from the national final. It was really, really sleek and stylish, and I just think it would have done so much better than Sisters. Do I think it would have won the contest? No, but I don't think it would have got 0 points in the televote either. I get that she is not the best loser in the world, shall we say? But her song's still a bop, and I would still dance to it if it came on at a Eurovision club night. I think we were robbed of it. Sorry.
I've somehow never watched the German national final. I know it's very weird because I do like your stuff, and you'd expect me to watch it, considering I actually watch NDR and ARD and stuff like that a surprising amount, so the responsible broadcasters. And yet I've somehow magically avoided all of them. I think, to be fair, my problem with that is, and it's been happening less in recent years from what I know, but I've never been a massive fan of Schlager, so the 80s entries from Germany also don't do it for me whatsoever. But it's always like, ooh, it's a German music competition. Chance of Schlager is problematically high for me, and I just don't want to get involved with that. But I'm sure there have been some great entries. I just, can't say much about it.
Okay, for me, I have a couple just to make up for Angus. Okay, one was in 2015 where we talked about, all the drama and Barbara. I will say for this one, I really think Andreas shouldn't have done that. Like, you just wasted people's money. They voted for you. You were the audience's choice. Like, I had Heart of Stone on repeat for a year, just like wondering, how should he have staged this in Vienna? Like, he would have just staged it so simple. And it would have been something where I think the audience would have just singing along, just being all emotional about it, because it's such an emotional heavy song. Looking at the flip side of it, I'm gonna go a couple of years back in 2013 with Loud Brass Banda with Nacket, this was actually very, very popular. Like, it was like, I mean, we already know that Cascada won it just because it was Cascada, and of course Natalie sings very awesome. But I think this one, it would have given it like a uniqueness factor on the competition, just because the way they performed it in the national final was just amazing. And I couldn't get the instruments out of the head for like a week after that, because all I could hear was the instruments. But I just, all I did was like just literally throw Cascada into like overplace, try and get rid of it. But you know what? It would be pretty funny. It would be pretty nice for like, Germany to send something like it's just like, I wouldn't say it like the stereotypical German, but it's what I'd look for in a German entry. So I am so sorry to our listeners if you're very put off by this. But okay, moving on. Obviously, Germany's been here in a very, very long time, and they've hosted quite a bit as well. So they've hosted it in 1957, 1983, and 2011, of course. And we do have an episode on 2011. So please do look out for that, because we have a new person on here and we're just going to ask his opinion on this. Angus, comparing 2011 and what they can do now, how did you actually find 2011? And is there anything you'd change from it? Because me and Jazzi have already vent our opinions on this.
I mean, 2011 it has aged poorly, but it also was an amazing show. I'll say that at the same time. It does depend on how much you can stand Stefan Raab. I think that is very important for your enjoyment of the entire thing. Can you stand Stefan Raab and his weird shtick? I had a good time with it. I worry about how they would do it now if they would have to host it. But I do feel that Germany still has this massive love for Eurovision, where they keep it just silly enough. Like, I love the shiny show the Netherlands put on this year, and I'm sure Italy will do something great and very classy. And I mean, Israel threw a great party, but I think sort of leaning into the silliness without necessarily the Swedish comedy of many people's favorite presenter duo is something Germany could do very well. And I think they would throw on a good show. I would be interested to see what they would do with the stage mostly, but that just depends on who they hire, and that is anyone's guess if that ever happens. But I do think there is something there, and Germany definitely wants to do it, and they do have the right people. As such, at the broadcast, they have the right people. They're not in the delegation making sure that the music gets sorted, but if you ever have been on their YouTube channel for the NDR Eurovision YouTube channel, it's very well organized and true passion for Eurovision. And I do think that those people will be involved in some degree.
I'm just gonna like pop in on just a point on 2011. I feel like the show wouldn't have worked as well if the songs themselves hadn't been as up-tempo heavy, because 2011 was a very up-tempo heavy year. And I don't know if the show would have worked as well in a ballad heavy year, because it was so fun and so silly. But they managed to keep it really slick at the same time, which I think is something I really, really appreciated. And I really enjoyed 2011. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. But yeah, I do wonder, would it have worked in a ballad heavy year? I'm not so sure.
And one final chime in for me was the hosts are great, but I would maybe put, once again, I'll say this again, maybe put Stefan Raab out, leave the ladies in, and then put Barbara in there. That'll be a good heavy mix of ladies just like being focused, and another all-women show, because they're all great. Like, we already know how Anka is, just because of the fact that she was very witty, she was very funny, and she was one of the hosts that Eurovision fans like really relate to. If you can name one thing from 2011, it's Anka. And Judith Rakers is just like, when it became to the serious point, like she was very poised and professional, and also very lighthearted. And with Barbara, like you said, Angus, she's just been a staple to like the Eurovision furniture. It wouldn't be a Eurovision without Barbara saying, at the Republic every time that she has to give the results. Like, your Germany and Eurovision would just not be the same. I swear there might be a compilation somewhere on YouTube where she just gives the votes out and she's just like wacky left, right, and center. Okay. Germany has had some other artists who has helped another country succeed in some way. So, you might have Lena and Michael recently who've been successful post Eurovision, and they're still releasing music and they're still appreciated in the German market. But some artists decided to venture out of Germany and help other countries with their songs and get them good results. The person that was pointed out by Angus is Ralph Siegel, who was one of the songwriters for Ich bin in Frieden by Nicole, which actually won for Germany. And even before that, he was actually helping out Luxembourg, and he was like alternating for like from 1974 Bye Bye I Love You by Irene Shear. And recently enough, in this century alone, like he has like helped out with, of course, Germany twice in 2002, 2003, and 6 for 1 in 2006, which is a bit of a, I don't know how to even explain that performance, but that performance was just like, okay, if you're Filipino and there's this show called ASAP, which is like, like a variety show, that's how you'd imagine would be that performance. It's like different singers of different genres just trying to sing the same song in different keys, kind of like Armenia in 2015, I'd say. But the most recent one that he was actually known for, and I think the country would be very, very grateful for them, is San Marino from 2012 to 2017. About 4 of it with being Valentina Moneta, and 1 of it them actually qualifying, like literally at the 10th place in 2014. And I think like Valentina just had it off, and it just like, what, this is just like literally the beg for help. And luckily enough, he made an appearance on the piano and it kind of just went through. So, like Angus said, Germany's one of the most successful music countries in the world, and see them being helpful, and I'm so glad they did. Now, enough about that little fact. We are gonna go on to our last bit. Obviously, it's looking likely that Germany is gonna select their 2022 representative for Turin internally. I'm gonna ask the question: have you got any faves that you want to, represent Germany?
I think I'd like to be surprised. The problem is most of the names that I could just mention are bigger names, but in the Michael Schulte area of heartfelt singer-songwriter would do very well. If you want to go slightly different direction while still staying in the same area, also recommendation for everyone listening, Annenmai Kantereit is a very cool German band I can definitely recommend. Or this have this great singer-songwriter feel, and the singer has this lovely deep voice. And while I don't think they would want to do Eurovision, something like that could definitely do pretty decent and put Germany back on track for Eurovision success.
I would happily see like Ben Dolich get another chance, because I think Violent Thing was a bop, and I think he has potential to send a bop to Eurovision. That's all I can think of right now. I'm sorry.
Oh, I am going to be the most basic person in this group, because I am going to be I'm going to make this comparison just so you guys can get it. Sweden has Charlotte Perrelli. Germany has its equivalent of Helen Fisher. And Angus is just like, come on, just say it. Come on, go on mute, just say it.
Please just don't. Just no, not her. Anyone but.
Why?
I just can't stand her. I'm sorry. I wanted to remain positive, not say anything negative about anything or anyone. Been very kind, but Helena Fisher, just please don't. I don't like anything she has done.
And all I'm gonna say is, Atemlos de die Nacht, da 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 da. And Angus is just living life. Actually, no, he's not. He's screaming for help, and it's actually kind of funny, just like watching him suffer in silence. But yeah, I want a bit of Schlager from Germany. Helen Fisher does it well and in a modern way. And if you didn't know about like the song I've just sung in Melody Festival in 2006, I think it was the second semifinal in Malmö. Charlotte Perrelli actually did a Swedish version of Atemlos through the Knocked, and she did a great performance on it on Melody Festival. And she was supposed to co-host, but she ended up just performing, and she did it quite well. And I actually want her to like, if you want something Schlager and boppy, I want her. And she's one of the best live performers in Germany. So, you know, Germany, please do whatever you can. Give her a lot of money. Like, give her a good song. Give us a Schlager goodness in Turin, please, I beg you. And then there's Angus just like suffering in my screen. It's like, no, please don't. Okay, I will say is that takes us to the end of this episode of That Eurovision Podcast about Germany. And before we go on to closing remarks, is there anything you guys want to say about Germany? Just anything in general about it before we round saying goodbye?
Nope, I'm all right, thanks.
I'll just repeat what I said at the beginning. Germany, thank you for always giving me something to say about your songs. No other country has done that at Eurovision.
I like the fact that, even though you haven't done well for the past few years, I appreciate the fact that you're always optimistic on being there and taking the result, whatever it may be. And the fact that the contest is just the fact that the contest is very popular in Germany, regardless of the result. I think the UK can learn a lot from Germany, because I think it's like the team spirit of it, like, win or lose, the crowd was always there for you for the night or like for the competition. And the fact that the support is there, and like, there's always that big crowd at the Reeperbahn just like cheering you on. If it was a German participant, my heart would just flutter and be happy about it. But that takes us to the end of this. I'll say thank you, Angus. Thank you, Jazzi, for coming along, and to you for getting this far into the episode, because it's Germany has a very colorful history in the competition, and it's quite nice to just talk about it. So before we go, please don't forget to like and follow us on our social medias, That Eurosite on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Same as well for the podcast. The podcast has its own account even for this. So at That Euro Podcast. Also, you can find the podcast on Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and of course, we also upload the episodes on YouTube. But for now, we want to say goodbye.
Bye.
Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Tschüss.